Have you checked your property tax bill lately? Or noticed your retirement savings buying less every month? You're not imagining it. We're witnessing the Great Exodus, Americans fleeing 10 specific states at record rates, not for better weather, but for financial survival. We've identified states caught in a death spiral. Fleeing taxpayers lead to higher taxes, which leads to more fleeing taxpayers. It's a doom loop. We analyzed 2024 to 2025 moving data, fiscal health reports, and crime statistics to rank the top 10 states you need to exit before 2026. Let's find out. Number 10. Nebraska, the opportunity gap. Now you might be wondering, why would anyone flee the stable, sensible Midwest? Nebraska has always been synonymous with reliability, with steady values, with that classic American heartland promise. So what's changed? Here's what changed. While local wages in Nebraska have essentially flatlined over the past 5 years, federal inflation has spiked dramatically. The cost of everything, from groceries to gas to home repairs, has climbed higher and higher, but paychecks, they're stuck in 2019. But it gets worse. Nebraska is experiencing what we call brain drain, and it's accelerating. The state's educated youth, college graduates, young professionals, the people who should be building the next generation of Nebraska's economy, are leaving in droves for coastal cities offering salaries that actually match the cost of living. They're heading to Denver, to Chicago, to Dallas, anywhere that will pay them what they're worth in this inflated economy. So who's left behind? Retirees on fixed incomes. And here's the cruel irony. With fewer working-age taxpayers contributing to the system, who do you think gets stuck footing the growing infrastructure bill? That's right, the retirees who can least afford it. The roads still need repair, the bridges still need maintenance, the schools still need funding. But with a shrinking tax base, Nebraska has only two options: cut services or raise taxes. And we all know which option politicians choose first. If you're retired or planning to retire in Nebraska, you're being asked to subsidize a state economy that's losing its most productive workers every single month. That's not stability. That's a slow-motion financial disaster. Number 9. North Dakota, the freezer tax. Speaking of the Midwest, let's slide north to North Dakota, where residents are learning a harsh lesson about what happens when your entire state economy rides on a single volatile industry. North Dakota's boom and bust energy economy has created an impossible situation for anyone trying to plan a long-term future there. When oil prices are high, everything's great, jobs are plentiful, wages are strong, and the state budget looks healthy. But when energy prices crash, and they always crash eventually, the entire house of cards collapses. Businesses close. Workers get laid off. Tax revenues plummet. How do you plan a retirement in an economy that swings wildly every few years? How do you budget when you have no idea whether your property taxes will stay stable or double to cover a budget shortfall caused by oil market fluctuations halfway around the world? But let's talk about the real cost, the freezer tax that no one warns you about. Why would you pay a premium to live in extreme geographic isolation where winter temperatures regularly hit minus 20 degrees? Retirees across North Dakota are having a brutal awakening right now. They're realizing that their fixed income, that social security check that seemed adequate when they retired 5 years ago, burns twice as fast when heating costs skyrocket. And skyrocket they have. When you're spending $500, $600, even $800 a month just to keep your home warm enough to survive, that's not a utility bill, that's a survival tax. And it's eating through retirement savings at an alarming rate. The promise of North Dakota was always about wide open spaces and a lower cost of living. But when your heating bill rivals your grocery budget, and when your state's economy can crash based on decisions made in Saudi Arabia or Russia, you're not living in affordable stability. You're living in expensive uncertainty. Number 8. Wyoming, the billionaire's playground. Now here's where things get interesting, because Wyoming presents a paradox that should serve as a warning to anyone who thinks low taxes automatically equal a good place to live. Wyoming has no state income tax, zero. That sounds like a dream, right? So why is the middle class vanishing? Welcome to the Yellowstone effect. Ultra-wealthy individuals and billionaires have discovered Wyoming, and they're buying up land at a pace that's fundamentally transforming the state. When the ultra-rich arrive, they bring their money, sure, but they also bring their price expectations. Property values are being pushed beyond the reach of average residents. We're not talking about modest increases. We're talking about working class families who've lived in Wyoming for generations suddenly finding themselves priced out of their own communities. Here's what happens. When billionaires buy ranches and estates, the property values in the entire area increase. Your property tax assessment goes up, even though your income hasn't budged. The local diner can't compete with the upscale restaurant that caters to wealthy tourists. The hardware store closes because the rich folks order everything online and have it delivered to their private estates. And here's the kicker about those low taxes everyone loves to brag about. Low taxes mean zero services. When you have a medical emergency in Wyoming, can you afford to be an hour away from a hospital? When your road doesn't get plowed because the county can't afford the equipment, what's that low tax rate worth to you then? Wyoming is becoming a service desert. The wealthy don't care. They can helicopter out in an emergency or hire private services for whatever they need. But if you're middle class or a retiree on a fixed income, you're stuck in a state where the cost of living is rising to match wealthy residents' expectations while the services you depend on are disappearing. No income tax starts to feel like a raw deal when you're watching your community transform into something you can no longer afford to live in. Alaska, the inflation island. Let's head even further north to Alaska, the state that once promised adventure and that famous annual dividend check from the state's oil wealth. It was the ultimate deal. Get paid to live in one of America's most beautiful states. But here's the math problem that's sending Alaskans fleeing south. That permanent fund dividend check no longer even comes close to covering the extra costs of living in geographic isolation. Let me paint you a picture of what Inflation Island really means. In Alaska, groceries cost approximately 40% more than in the continental United States. Your gallon of milk, add $2. Your loaf of bread, add $1. That package of chicken, add $3 or $4. Now multiply that across your entire monthly grocery bill, month after month, year after year. Fuel costs, also about 40% higher. Everything has to be shipped in, and somebody has to pay for that shipping. And that somebody is you. The supply chain shock that hit during the pandemic exposed just how vulnerable Alaska's economy really is. When shipping gets disrupted, prices don't just go up, they explode. Alaskans watched their cost of living spike while that dividend check stayed relatively flat. Here's what retirees are figuring out. The adventure was amazing when you were young, when you had a steady paycheck, when the dividend felt like a bonus. But when you're on a fixed income and watching your savings account drain $500, $1,000, $1,500 faster every month than it would anywhere else, the adventure loses its appeal pretty quickly. The reality is brutal. You're paying a massive premium to live in isolation, and that dividend check, the whole reason many people move there in the first place, doesn't even cover the extra cost anymore. The math doesn't work. The adventure is over, and the financial drain is very, very real. Number 6. Louisiana, the uninsurable state. As we move into the top 5, the financial threats become more severe, more immediate, and more catastrophic. And Louisiana represents a threat that should terrify anyone who owns property in a climate risk zone. Louisiana isn't just dealing with humidity and hurricanes, it's dealing with insolvency. And we're not talking about some distant future problem. This is happening right now. We're watching a full-scale insurance exodus from Louisiana. Major carriers are pulling out of the state entirely or tripling their rates. And the reason is simple. The climate risk has become unmanageable. Between hurricanes, flooding, and rising sea levels, insurance companies have done the math and realized they cannot profitably insure Louisiana properties anymore. Think about what this means. You cannot build generational wealth if your home insurance payment rivals your mortgage payment. Let that sink in. You're essentially paying for your house twice. Once to own it and once to protect it. But it gets even worse. Some Louisiana homeowners are discovering they can't get private insurance at any price. They're being forced into state-run insurance programs that offer minimal coverage at maximum cost. And when the next major hurricane hits, not if, but when, many of these underfunded state programs could collapse entirely. Imagine this scenario. You've lived in your Louisiana home for 30 years. You've paid off your mortgage. You thought you were secure. Then a hurricane hits, your insurance company goes bankrupt, and the state fund doesn't have enough money to cover everyone's claims. You're left with a destroyed home, no insurance payout, and a property you can't sell because no one will buy in an uninsurable area. This isn't a hypothetical nightmare. This is the reality facing thousands of Louisiana homeowners right now. The bottom line is simple and stark. Louisiana is becoming uninsurable, and if you can't insure it, you can't afford to own it. Number 5. Massachusetts, the wealth trap. Now we're entering truly dangerous territory because Massachusetts represents a different kind of threat, one that specifically targets people who did everything right, who saved diligently, who built wealth responsibly. They don't call it Taxachusetts as a joke. They call it that because this state has perfected the art of extracting wealth from its residents, especially from those on fixed incomes. Massachusetts aggressively targets wealth at every turn. Property taxes, among the highest in the nation, income taxes, no deductions, no mercy, estate taxes, they start at lower thresholds than almost anywhere else. Capital gains, heavily taxed. The state has essentially built a comprehensive system designed to extract maximum revenue from anyone who has accumulated any significant assets. But here's where it becomes truly suffocating: the housing wall. If you want to retire in Massachusetts and maintain even a middle-class standard of living, not luxury, just middle-class comfort, you need a multi-million-dollar portfolio. Think about what that means. You spend your entire working life saving for retirement. You accumulate what you think is a comfortable nest egg, maybe $500,000, maybe $750,000. That would let you retire comfortably in most of America. But in Massachusetts, that might barely cover your property taxes and basic expenses for 15 or 20 years, and that's assuming no major financial emergencies. The math is punishing. A modest home in a decent area costs $600,000 to $800,000. Your property taxes alone could run $10,000, $12,000, or $15,000 annually. Add in the high cost of utilities, groceries, healthcare, and basic services, and you're burning through $80,000 to $100,000 per year just to maintain a modest lifestyle. Massachusetts has created what we call a wealth trap, a place where even if you have significant savings, the state's tax and cost structure is specifically designed to extract those savings as quickly as possible. Illinois, the forever mortgage. If Massachusetts is a wealth trap, Illinois is a financial catastrophe in slow motion. And the numbers are so stark they should serve as a warning to every other state in America. Illinois is losing 3.6% of its population. That might not sound like much until you understand what it represents. A massive demographic bleed that's accelerating every year. People aren't just leaving, they're fleeing. And here's why. Illinois is sitting on a pension bomb that's slowly detonating. Right now, if you're a property owner in Illinois, you're paying for the retirement of government workers who retired 10 years ago. You're funding pension promises that were made decades ago by politicians who are long gone, using money the state never actually had. The Illinois pension system is one of the worst funded in America. The gap between what's been promised and what's actually available is measured in hundreds of billions of dollars. And who has to fill that gap? You do. Current residents and property owners are being asked to foot the bill for obligations that should have been funded decades ago. But here's where it gets truly crushing: the property tax hook. In Illinois, you never truly own your home. You're just renting it from the state through exorbitant property taxes that never stop, never decrease, and only go in one direction, up. Imagine finally paying off your 30-year mortgage. You should be celebrating, right? Your housing costs should drop dramatically. But in Illinois, property taxes are so high that your monthly payment barely changes. You've eliminated your mortgage, but you're still paying thousands of dollars every month to the state just for the privilege of living in a home you supposedly own. Property taxes of $12,000, $15,000, even $20,000 annually are common in Illinois suburbs. That's over $1,500 per month, every month forever, even after you've paid off your house. This is why high earners are leaving Illinois in droves. They're doing the math and realizing that no amount of income justifies these property tax bills. And as high earners leave, who's left to fill the budget gap? The middle class. The people who can least afford it are being asked to carry an increasingly heavy load, which causes more people to leave, which increases the burden on those who remain. It's a death spiral, and Illinois is caught in it. New Jersey, the fiscal black hole. If you think Illinois is bad, welcome to New Jersey, a state that has been number one in outbound migration for multiple years running. That's not number one in something good. That's number one in people desperately trying to escape. New Jersey has achieved something remarkable and terrible. It has created a fiscal black hole from which wealth cannot escape. The state's tax and cost structure is so oppressive that it's systematically extracting and destroying wealth faster than residents can create it. Let's talk about the numbers that are driving this exodus. Property taxes of $25,000 per year are common in New Jersey, not in mansions, not in luxury estates. In regular middle-class homes, in regular middle-class neighborhoods, $25,000 per year, that's over $2,000 every single month in property taxes alone. How does that fit into a fixed income retirement budget? The brutal answer is, it doesn't. Think about retiring in New Jersey on a typical retirement income. Social Security might give you $30,000 or $40,000 per year. Maybe you have a modest pension or some investment income. But if $25,000 of your annual income is going just to property taxes, not your mortgage, not utilities, not food, just property taxes, how are you supposed to live? And here's the spiral that makes this even worse. High earners are leaving New Jersey as fast as they can. They're taking their businesses, their taxable income, and their spending power to Florida, to North Carolina, to Tennessee, anywhere but New Jersey. So who's left to fill the budget deficit? The middle class, the retirees on fixed incomes. The people who are already struggling to pay their property taxes are being asked to pay even more as the wealthy flee. New Jersey has created a perfect storm of fiscal dysfunction, incredibly high costs, terrible tax policy, declining services, and rising crime in many areas. Every single factor that would make you want to stay is deteriorating, while every single cost is increasing. The fiscal black hole is real, and it's consuming the wealth and the future of everyone who stays. Number 2, New York, the broken contract. We're now at number 2, and New York represents something profound: the complete breakdown of the social contract between a state and its citizens. The exodus from New York is staggering. 60% of all moves are outbound. That means for every person moving into New York, more than one person is moving out. The state is literally shrinking, and it's not a mystery why. New Yorkers are asking themselves a fundamental question: why am I paying luxury prices for third world services? Think about what you're supposed to get when you pay premium taxes. Excellent schools, safe streets, reliable infrastructure, efficient government services. That's the deal. You pay more, you get more. But New York has broken that contract. Residents are paying some of the highest taxes in America while watching their quality of life deteriorate before their eyes. Crime is rising in major cities and spreading to suburbs that were safe for generations. The subway system, once the pride of American public transportation, has become unreliable and, in many areas, genuinely dangerous. Schools are struggling despite massive budgets. Basic city services that used to work reliably now seem broken. Meanwhile, taxes keep climbing. Property taxes are crushing. State income taxes are among the highest in the nation. Sales taxes add 8% or more to every purchase. Congestion pricing is extracting even more money from people just trying to get to work. New Yorkers are doing the math and reaching an unavoidable conclusion. The value proposition has completely collapsed. They're paying premium prices and getting discount services, or worse. And here's the exodus within the exodus. Wealthy New Yorkers are taking their tax base to Florida en masse. We're not talking about a few thousand people. We're talking about billions of dollars in taxable income relocating to states with no income tax. Number 1, California, the unlivable paradise. And now, the number 1 state Americans are fleeing, California, the Golden State, the American dream, the place that once represented unlimited opportunity and perfect weather. How did it come to this? The numbers are shocking. California has lost a net 1.7 million people since 2020. Let that number sink in. Nearly 2 million people looked at California, with its beaches, its weather, its culture, its opportunities, and decided they'd rather live somewhere else. California is facing what we call the triple threat: 3 simultaneous crises that are making the state genuinely unlivable for anyone who isn't a multimillionaire. First, California has the highest gas taxes in America. Residents are paying an extra dollar or more per gallon compared to other states every single time they fill up. For the average commuter, that's hundreds of dollars per month just in the tax portion of their gas bill. Second, the retail theft epidemic. California essentially decriminalized shoplifting by raising the felony threshold, and the results have been catastrophic. Stores are closing in major cities. Chains that have operated for decades are pulling out entirely. The stores that remain have locked up basic items like toothpaste and deodorant behind security barriers, turning every shopping trip into a humiliating ordeal. This isn't just inconvenient, it's a sign of a society that has fundamentally broken down. When you can't buy shampoo without waiting for an employee to unlock a cage, you're not living in a first world state anymore. Third, the insurance company exodus. Just like Louisiana, California is becoming uninsurable. Major carriers are refusing to write new policies or are pulling out of the state entirely. Wildfire risk, earthquake risk, and deteriorating infrastructure have made California properties too risky to insure at any reasonable price. Imagine paying $4,000, $5,000, or $6,000 per month for your mortgage, only to discover your home insurance is going to cost another $1,500 per month, if you can even get coverage at all. But here's what makes California's crisis unique. The state government is actively making policy decisions that push middle-class residents out. The tax structure, the regulatory environment, the tolerance of crime. It's as if the state has decided that unless you're wealthy enough to insulate yourself from these problems, you're not wanted. California once promised that anyone could come and make it big. Now, unless you're already a multimillionaire, the state is designing policy specifically to make your life harder. The Golden State has become the deficit state, running massive budget shortfalls while hemorrhaging the middle-class taxpayers who built it. The verdict is clear: California is no longer a state for regular people. It's become an unlivable paradise, beautiful to look at, but impossible to afford. Now, if you've made it this far, you might be thinking, okay, I get it. These states are financial disasters. I'll just move to Florida, Texas, or Tennessee like everyone else. Problem solved, right? Wrong. And this is where we need to have a hard conversation about the trap that millions of Americans are walking straight into. Here's the truth. Everyone had that idea 3 years ago. You're not a pioneer heading to untapped territory. You're arriving late to a party that's already overcrowded, overpriced, and overheated. Let's talk about Florida first. Yes, there's no state income tax. Yes, the weather is beautiful. But let me tell you what they don't put in the brochures. Florida's home insurance market is in complete chaos. Carriers are fleeing the state or raising rates by 50%, 100%, sometimes 200%. Hurricane Ian, Hurricane Idalia, Hurricane Helene, each storm pushes more insurance companies into insolvency. If you think Louisiana's insurance crisis is bad, Florida is right behind it, and with a much bigger population at risk. And inflation, Florida's cost of living has exploded. The state that used to be affordable has seen rents and home prices skyrocket as millions of people compete for limited housing. Your dollar doesn't go as far as it used to, and it's getting worse every month. Now, Texas. No state income tax sounds great until you realize how Texas pays for everything: property taxes. And those property taxes are skyrocketing to compensate for the lack of income tax. Texas homeowners are seeing their property tax bills increase by 20%, 30%, even 40% in just a few years. Counties are reassessing properties at vastly inflated values, and homeowners are stuck paying the bill. The no income tax benefit is being eroded by property tax increases that are, in many cases, even more expensive. It's a game of musical chairs, and here's what nobody wants to admit. The buy-in price for the last few chairs just doubled. You're not escaping to financial freedom. You're trading one sinking ship for another one that's just a few years behind. The popular escape states are becoming expensive, crowded, and increasingly unaffordable precisely because everyone had the same idea. The secret is out, and now you're competing with millions of other people for the same limited resources in the same limited areas. The solution isn't moving from one state to another. That's just trading deck chairs on the Titanic. The real solution is moving out of the system entirely. Imagine slicing your cost of living by 70% while upgrading your lifestyle. This is geo-arbitrage, using your strong dollars where they're treated like royalty, not taxed into oblivion. There are countries actively competing for American retirees, offering tax incentives, residency programs, and lifestyle benefits that make staying in the US look like a terrible deal. The game is rigged. Stop playing it. We've documented the top 5 countries that actually want you there, with lower costs, better healthcare, and governments that appreciate you. Watch our Expat Escape Plan video next to see the exact steps to make it happen. Don't go down with the ship, subscribe to Living Wise Global, and see you in the next video.